Hello and welcome to the PnP virtual conference, to yet another great session. The PnP community has offered so much to developers, to end users, to anyone looking to get the most out of Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams, Graph, and so much more. What we found is all of these different tools often can be kind of overwhelming, and it would be nice to see what a solution would look like when you put some of these tools together. The SP Starter Kit seeked to answer that for you and say, hey, so we've got things such as PnP PowerShell, we have PnP provisioning, we have all of these SharePoint Framework web parts that have been built within the community, or hey, if you put all these things together, here's this more comprehensive idea of what this could look like. And the SP Starter Kit really looked to pull all that together as a demonstration, as a overview of if you took some of these other things and you put them into your own custom solution, you could drive even this much more value out of Microsoft 365. Originally, of course, starting with SharePoint, but now extending beyond that. Now, version 2 was released in the middle of 2020. But one of the things that really is important to about the SP Starter Kit is it's a starter, but it was never really designed to be used straight up out of the box in production. It was designed to be a great technology demonstrator for end users, for power users, for community champions who wanted to show, hey, this is what could be possible. But definitely it's also a great starting point for developers or citizen developers to say, hey, here is this comprehensive solution, and here's all the source code put together with pretty comprehensive documentation to say, cool, what can you do? That's the value I want to get out of this session, is I want to show you how to take this starter kit as is and expand upon it and do more with it. We're going to dive into a couple of key areas that we found is where we can get some of the most value out of this. So we'll start with who I am. My name is Eric Overfield. I am president, co-founder of PixelMill. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director, a Microsoft MVP in the Office apps and services space. One of the things that I love about my job, though, is I get to work with the community a lot. I get to work with technology a lot, and I get to help share that knowledge and share the learnings that I've seen within different enterprises and help pull that together and offer it off to the community. And a part of that, so I'm one of the project co-leads of the SP Starter Kit. You can get a hold of me at ericoverfield.com or at ericoverfield if you ever are looking to reach out to me and say, hey, here's some things we want to do. Let's work as a community to make that all happen. So what I think would be really important right now, though, a very, very, very quick overview of what the starter kit is, just so we can level set everybody. There's a lot of other documentation and videos on how to really dive into it. So I just want to get an overview of it, though, and an overview then of the structure of it. And then what I'd like to do is look at two key things, two key areas that we have found where you can really take the starter kit, where I think it does a really good job, how you can then take that and make it your own. Use this as a starting template to extend to work within your specific tenant organization. So we want to look at extending the provisioning aspect of it. Now, the last thing we want to do is look at the SharePoint Framework components that have been offered in the starter kit and see how they're put together. What could you do to extend them? In particular, look at some of the newer features of the SharePoint Framework around libraries. And so with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's go ahead and look at what the starter kit is and how you could use this project today within your organization, and how you could show off some features to maybe project sponsors or to those within your organization who are confused as to what's currently possible. So the starter kit, kind of to level set in case it is new, in case you are new to the starter kit, you can always find it at github.com/pnp/sp starter kit. It's pretty easy. It's over on GitHub and totally open source, completely available. Use it however you want. Everything in there is licensed for the community. The concept behind the starter kit, though, originally has been this comprehensive solution where we looked to build not just provisioning, but also pull together custom SharePoint Framework web parts, within the provisioning, how to provision those web parts, all is one thing that actually does then work. So it's a demonstrator, a demo of all these features put together in a nice cohesive way. This was built around SharePoint. We are looking to extend that well into Teams and to other platforms within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, though. But currently the primary focus is on provisioning and custom components within SharePoint, put into something that you could demo as soon as you've installed it. The starter kit, again, kind of going back to this idea that it's this example of what can be done. And really what we're looking to do with this project is give you this inspiration of what's possible. So when you see the really cool tools such as PnP PowerShell and PnP provisioning and customizations that are possible, i.e. using SharePoint Framework, like what could you do? And what's a good example of that? Or how could you use provisioning to provision not just one site but multiple sites because you're looking to build a provisioning solution which provisions a new project, let's say you need multiple communication sites and team sites with navigation and hubs and all that kind of stuff. How could you put all that together? And that's what this project seeks to do. It's not designed, as I said, to be production, this is what it is, and you don't ever customize it. It's designed to be that starting place for you. Now, if you're looking to extend this, in particular extend the provisioning and the installation aspect of it, I provided another link here, which is basically you're going to be going to the provisioning folder of the project, and you're going to find all the documentation you need. So let's go ahead and let's go look at the code, because I think that's what really is pretty super cool and really valuable and important. But we're going to start at the Starter Kit project page. This is sort of the what we find to be a really great place to get started. If you go ahead and you, from this project page, one of the first things you really want to do is scroll down, and you're going to find your pre-requirements and your getting started. So if we quickly go to getting started, the installation process, once you pull this project, you're going to be connecting to the tenant that you want to install this to. And there's a whole bunch of prerequisites here, but you're going to be connecting to your tenant. Once you connect to the tenant from the provisioning folder of this solution, you're going to apply, use the PnP PowerShell apply PnP tenant template. You're going to apply starterkit.pnp. That's going to take somewhere in the order of 8 to 10 minutes. And that's going to go ahead and provision 3 things. It's going to 3 primary sites. It's going to provision a communication site, and then it's going to provision 2 team sites. That communication site is going to be a hub that the team sites are automatically provisioned to. Now, if we want to quickly go see what that looks like, so you can now see what after the provisioning is done. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get a communication site that has all of this content you see. All of it is going to be pre-filled out. So everything you see here is exactly what you should see as well. In fact, it's the same imagery, the same content, because this also provisions news, it provisions pages, it provisions the hub navigation, it provisions the team sites that we talked about. So you can see we go to team site. It's already been provisioned. Let's see what else. It has custom web parts that you'll find. It's customizing the navigation automatically using creating the mega menu. If we go over to the tenant app catalog, you're going to see a lot of web parts. So this was something that was done in V2, where we split out all of the SPFx web parts into their own solutions. So it'd be much more easy for you to take each individual one. All right, so there's some general some general objectives that we're really looking to seek with this, which we talked about. This is something I definitely recommend that you read. It's going to help you understand a little more what V2 is attempting to address. Then there's another really cool thing you can do that we talk about, which is all the custom web parts. So again, I'm at the home page here and I'm clicking on custom web parts, and you get a list of all of the web parts that have been added. These are included directly within the solution, but they're fully open source. You can do whatever you want. You can tweak them. All of these are these web parts to me are much more ready for prime time. I've seen these in production, and I feel pretty safe supporting them. That these would be ready for production. That being said, use this and take this code and definitely make it your own. So once you go ahead and get this code and download this code, one of the cool things that was recently added is this code tour. So if you don't have the Code Tour extension in Visual Studio Code, you can go ahead and download that. That's just an extension. It's called Code Tour. And once you do that, if you want to, you can go ahead and start the tour. And the Code Tour will walk you through the code. Okay, let's go ahead and let's just stop this Code Tour. Let me go ahead, though, and go through a couple of the key primary folders that I really want you to pay attention to. So first of all, within the project itself, there is the provisioning folder. Now, the provisioning folder really holds one main thing that I care about here, which is the starterkit.pnp file. Some of these other files you might not see there. So there's the starterkit.pnp. Now, this is a PnP provisioning bundle that was created by taking a PnP provisioning XML template and bundling it together with all of the assets and resources that might be needed. So it's one big file. This includes all the SPFx files, everything. The other thing I do think of as interest here that you would care about is, in my opinion, is the readme.md file. There's some really good information here. Now, the other really big thing that was added to V2 was the source folder. Now, the source folder, the big stuff that is here is all of the solutions for the SPFx components and whatnot. Another thing that was added, though, was the templates folder. And so the templates folder includes a list of XML files that are all of your PnP provisioning XML files. Very important places where I suggest you start to look would be that provisioning folder and the sources folder. Okay, so that's sort of like the quick overview. So let's go ahead and let's dive into some key aspects here. And I've been talking a lot about the provisioning components, so let's go ahead and let's dive right in. The PnP provisioning bundle, that .pnp file we already saw, was in the provisioning folder. Now you can of course create your own, and that's like this big cool thing. You can customize what we've provided, but you can create your own. The source files I showed you were in that /source/templates folder. So here's the two big commands I want you to know though. The first one is the read PnP tenant template command. Now you're looking at a commandlet here that would have been run from the provisioning folder. So what we're doing here is we're basically saying go ahead and read starterkit.xml, save it as the $kit variable. The second big command I want you to know is the save PnP tenant template. You take in an input template. In this case, we're taking in that variable and we're placing it, we're going to output it to something else such as starterkit.pnp. That's all there really is to it. So what I want to do, let's take an example. How would you actually do this? You might go to the tenant folder. You might take the starterkit.xml file, copy and paste it. So now you have the starterkit, copy.xml, and you may say, oh, okay, well, I really want to name this starterkit. Now from here, what would you do? Well, one of the first things you might do is start to look through it and say, well, I don't maybe need all of this stuff. Or maybe we want to, you can see one of the first things that we do is we apply a whole bunch of assets into the tenant app catalog. Well, we found that, side note here, in some of the installations we've been helping people with, we found that there's problems applying provisioning the SPFx components directly into that catalog. So maybe you need to do that manually. But you can just go ahead and you can delete that whole section. Now, when you create this new provisioning template here from this starterkit-mine.xml file to it would be a starterkit-mine.pnp file, that would happen. You could just work through this whole thing and start to see what's happening here and start to break this down and see how things are built. So let's go ahead and let's look at the sequence of events. So with a sequence of events is creating a whole bunch of site collections. We can see the 3 site collections that are created here, and we can kind of get an idea, I think, pretty quick of what they are. Well, let's look at the top one. This is our communication site. That's going to be the type as a communication site. And it's actually going to be using 3 provisioning templates to help define and structure what this communication site should do. Now, if we kind of keep going down, we'll see that, oh, wow, look at that. There's all these terms, this whole term store component. Maybe we don't need that. Maybe we don't want to add the terms directly in at this point because maybe we've already done it. We're doing manually. Maybe we need to change it. If we start looking at this template, we can find setting up some site fields, and I'm going to jump us down to something else I think is super cool, which is the client-side pages. You'll find a provisioning template down below in this whole file, which talks about creating pages, actual pages with sections, and there's all these controls. These are the SharePoint Framewwork web parts. You're like, wow, I mean, there's some really cool, crazy stuff going on here. So if you ever want just a demo of like what provisioning can do, what a provisioning template could look like, this is your place to start. Just go grab starterkit.xml from the source/templates folder, and you'll have a great template. I've already created the starterkit-demo.xml file. It's pretty lean. What we're doing here is I'm doing some just general localization. I'm doing no tenant settings. I'm creating one one communication site, I'm going to be running 2 provisioning templates on top of that. The root template is setting a theme, setting a header and footer. It's setting some basic navigation, and it's going to be creating just one client-side page with just a few web parts to it. So I've really stripped this down. And by the way, I just said, let's just go ahead and have it add in a bunch of files as well. Okay, so a couple commands that I told you that were super important. All right, so the first one is the to read in the template. Now you can see that I'm in the provisioning folder. So here I'm running the read PnP tenant template commandlet. I'm going to be reading in that starter kit-demo file that I just showed you. All right, let's read that in. And the next thing we want to do is we would like to save that tenant template. So here we're going to be saving with an out file of starter kit-demo.pnp. All right, we're going to overwrite that. So let's go ahead and let's look at our files, and we will see here that we have this starter kit-demo.pnp. It's actually a pretty large file. The reason why it's pretty large, because it does have, it actually bundled in those files that I wanted to add with it, which, Alrighty, so now what we would need to do is we would need to go ahead and connect to SharePoint so that we can go ahead and apply this provisioning template. Let's go ahead and connect to our site in question. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run we're going to apply this template. We're going to apply the starter kit-demo.pnp, and we're sending in a parameter, which is we want to create a site demo prov of 1. So this is going to slowly provision here. All right, and so that is done. So let's go ahead and let's take this URL, and let's go ahead and let's load it up. There we go. Okay, so now that the site loaded up, we can see that it's very similar to what we had before, but a lot less content, much simpler top navigation here, much simpler drop-down navigation. But it gives you an idea here of creating your own provisioning template using the source of what we've provided and using those two key commands that we provided. Those two key commands, which is the reading the provisioning template, your XML file, and then saving it. And then after you do that, you just can run basically the normal installation process, just ensuring that you use your new .pnp file, whatever you've called it, and really go wild with it, please. I would love to see your custom provisioning solutions you've used, where you've taken the starter kit and you've used that as your beginning thoughts. Okay, so the last thing I want to really talk to you about is going over the custom components that are provided. So taking the SPFx components that are included, including the web parts and the extensions, and doing something. Now make them your own. Okay, so the source for all of these is found in the source folder. We have kept the V1 version. It's in a different folder, but the source folder within the project now contains the V2, where we've split out all of the web parts into their own solution. So the idea here is using all of these components really as a launch pad into your own custom provisioning and delivery process. So take the web parts that you think are important. You don't have to use the provisioning template if you don't want. If all you want are a few of the web parts, great. Use them. Take the SPPKGs, throw them into your tenant app catalog. Take the source code, put them into your own project, your own repo. Work with your team to make them just super cool and do whatever it is that you want with them. So one of the things that we really wanted to show, though, because really the web parts is no different than any SharePoint Framework web part. You have them all. What we thought was really cool and what we wanted to be able to show was how you can take some of the other components that Microsoft has released and put them into a larger project. And one of those is the libraries functions that are available to us, where we can build reusable code. So one of the thoughts that we had was, a reusable code that is pretty common would be something like multilingual, where you might have a whole bunch of multilingual strings that you would want to use in multiple projects. You don't want to have all of the multilingual strings in every single solution. You'd like all of your different solutions to use one common library. You could update that one common library, and then all of the solutions that are using it would automatically receive that new code base. But we also wanted to extend that and said, hey, something else that you can do is take the gulp process and extend that. Okay, so a couple things we're going to be doing here. One is this should look like your standard common the common multilingual found in SPFx. But let's go ahead and create banner new, and we're going to give this a string new banner title. All right. Now, normally what you'd find is the mystrings.d.ts would include a whole bunch of it would describe the interface that was the multilingual aspects of it. And something else we wanted to show, though, was this other idea of where you might want to create your own interface that was really based off the enums, so that you could more easily utilize your custom strings within other projects where you didn't always remember what things were called. So what we wanted to do to help automate this whole process was build a gulp task, which would help generate a local keys enumeration based on all of the strings found in, say, the English version. Let's just say English is going to be our root. And so what we did here is you have this this gulp file, this generate localkeys.js. It has a specific task, generate local keys. What this will do is it's going to add the build.rig comes from SharePoint Framework. That's adding a pre-built task to generate this local keys if this file is utilized. It will then run through this, and the output is the localkeys.ts file. Now, how we did all of this was we go ahead and we require in gulpfile.js. So anytime the gulp file is used, it will automatically go and require the generator key localkeys.js, which has that the build rig preload, and it will always regenerate this code base. So let's look at it as an example. If we go to localkeys.ts and we go to the bottom, we're going to see that the bottom string is the placeholder button label. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go to this is the library, and let's do a gulp build. All right, and what we'll then see it already happened is the localkeys.ts file automatically got a new update. Isn't that kind of cool? So it's all automated things you can do. Like, this is what the starter kit's looking to do, is help pull together more than what you might see out of the box, and how in a larger production build within a larger tenant, you might extend what the framework can do, or what the out-of-the-box features were designed to do, using just general methodologies around gulp, etc. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see that how a specific site might, or how a specific component might use this. So let's look at React followed sites. That's one of the components we have that is already using this. If we go to package.json, you'll see that package.json is already set up to use the starter kit shared library. And if you want to then see how it's being used, we can go into the web part, and we can see we are importing the shared library from we're importing the local keys, etc., from the shared library. And if we just go ahead and go and look for that, we would find how we're using all of these aspects to be able to pull in, how we're able to pull in these shared strings from, say, the React followed sites SPFx web part, how we're pulling in from the library those common strings. Now let's go ahead and let's look at the component itself. So followed sites is actually doing the same thing. So it's also being able to pull in some of these components. Now what I want to do here is just to make things kind of, to me, just a little more interesting and whatnot, we can just add in here I'm going to add in a div. Oops. There we go. And we're going to pull in the sites, or the banner new. Now, did you see that it already knew banner new where it came from? Isn't that cool? So the code, Visual Studio Code was able to look at my dependencies, is able to help me figure that out, give me the type ahead to say, oh, hey, I know that local keys is an enum and that it has that value. And it allowed me to not even, I could just start typing in and I could start to see some of these things come together. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see what we would have typically out of the box without doing anything in particular. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this page. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in the followed sites. And it works, and my title doesn't have anything new in it. No big surprise there. So let's search for followed. We're going to find that the followed sites web part is coming from the proper client-side assets, which is what we're looking for right now. And I also want to show you the library. The SP Starter Kit shared library is also coming from that. Now, what I want to do is, because I want to do some local building, I'm going to go ahead and go to source. Let's go to the library here. Let's do a gulp. We already did gulp build, so we can do a gulp bundle. Now, what I'm purposely going to do here is I'm going to be replacing React followed gulp bundle. So what we're going to do is, like, this might be a common development practice you might have, where you're going to replace the whoops, not solutions, it's just solution. You're going to replace the SPPKG that's in the app catalog with what would be a local build. So instead of having the bundles being loaded from the CDN or from SharePoint, etc., you're going to have them pulled from localhost as part of your dev process. So gulp package solution. This is the followed sites. Now let's see if I saved the file. I did. Perfect. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to copy over the new SPPKG files from the library. So I'm copying over the library now. This is the new library bundle that's going to be pulling from localhost. And let's go ahead and pull in the followed sites and followed sites. And what we should see here on a bundle is here. So for a web part extension, libraries don't do this. It'll tell us where it's coming from. Perfect. So let's go ahead and we'll do a gulp serve. Gulp serve, no browser. And we'll do the same thing over on gulp serve, no browser. Now this actually should also make you kind of like go, hey, wait a second, how could you run two SharePoint Framework components at one time? Because you typically couldn't do that. The way we did that was we went into serve in the library in config, we went into serve.json, and we actually changed the port for the SPFx library to not use 4321, but to use 43211. That way we could actually run both projects at once, and that SharePoint Framework kind of handles all that extra plumbing for us. There's really nothing more we need to do. All right, so let's go ahead and we will refresh this page. And it already kind of did exactly what we were hoping for. Okay, so you can see here that new banner title that came in as that string. We actually can see that if we're looking at the starter kit shared library.js file, it's pulling from localhost 43211. And if we did the same thing over on followed, we would see the same thing. We would see that follow sites web parts being pulled from localhost as well. So, of course, you can just take SharePoint Framework web parts that are included in the source, and you can do whatever you want with them. You can rebuild them, bundle them, you can do all kinds of cool stuff, make them your own. But one of the cool things that we really thought we hope you would enjoy and be able to utilize and see in practice, like, hey, what is this cool new thing? Is something such as the shared library. How you can extend it, how you could see how we put it together and sort of play through all the code to figure that out. You could build this code. Another cool thing that I think is just general dev practices on a dev side is you would just do a gulp bundle, gulp package solution without -ship. That allows you to do that dev build so that as you make changes on your local machine, your local workstation, you could quickly see them. Of course, only you. That's one of the catches to this whole thing. But you can see how then you could utilize the shared library in the other components that are utilizing it, and it's instant. It just magically works. So really cool ways you can take the starter kit and truly make it your own. So I hope you really enjoyed this session. I hope it kind of gave you an idea of what the starter kit can do beyond just what it is out of the box, and how to take it and make it your own by say utilizing the provisioning aspect and building your own provisioning components. And you could really extend this to make some very, very complex provisioning scenarios, but also looking at the whole source folder and taking the components that were included, the extensions, the web parts, and don't be afraid to get in there and look at the code, see how they're built, make it your own, and take the pieces that you want, add new components in there, add new web parts. Go take web parts from the PnP community, add them into this project, update the provisioning template. So easy to do all this and really extend this project and just make it do whatever it is you want. Of course, we're always looking for anything else that could be done. If there's other ideas you've got, or you want to submit things back in the community and say, hey, I did this really cool thing, we should try it. Please do try it. We're always looking for feedback on this session. I would love to know what you thought, so please do use the AKA the MS feedback link you see here. I really appreciate your time. Good luck with your solutions that you're going to be building, and I look forward to hearing all about the successful stories you have around what the Starter Kit did for you. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.